This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Minute podcast. Today's discussion is on next steps. So what we see in so much of business, so much of sales activity, so much of execution activity, so much of everything is people getting paralyzed by almost thinking too much about all the things they have to do. And so one of the ways to combat this is to constantly think in terms of, what is my next step? What are my next 3 steps? What are the next 3 things I got to get done today? And constantly coming back to this concept of not looking at everything in my to-do list, everything for the next year, but sort of focusing down, filtering down to what are the next 3 things I've got to do. So I look at that, I say the next 3 things I got to do today is I got to get my single purpose podcast done. I've got to interview somebody at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I've got another podcast. And maybe during that period of time, I've got to drink some water and get some steps in. But how do I look at what are the next few things I got to do, the next step or the next 2 to 3 steps, and constantly try and narrow down to that. And really the same goes in any sort of business. What's the most important thing we have to do now? The most important thing we've got to do now is outsource employees to a lower cost market. Then every day we're going to have a conference call and a huddle on that issue. Whatever it is, it's really trying to understand what's our most important next step, our single next step, our single 1, 2, and 3 steps, and really focusing back towards those 3 things. And this is a daily, almost an hourly discipline to keep oneself tracked and centered and moving towards the right things. And then, of course, looking at, do those align with your bigger goals? That's the next issue. Do those steps align with your bigger goals? Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.